Welcome. This is Florencia Fabrega, and in the following video, I'm going to develop different theories we can apply to the analysis of literary works. They are structuralism, narratology, and postcolonialism. The first theory that I'm going to address is structuralism. It is an intellectual movement which began in France in the 1950s. Its essence is the belief that things cannot be understood in isolation, but must be viewed within the context of larger systems or structures they are part of. We can mention three main representatives of this movement: Ferdinand de Saussure, Claude Lévi-Strauss, and Roland Barthes. Ferdinand de Saussure holds that the meanings we give to words are purely arbitrary and that meanings are maintained by convention. Meaning is also relational, which means that the meaning of a word depends on its relation with other adjoining words in the paradigmatic chain. Meaning also arises from paired opposites, in which there is a mutually defining aspect. For example, if we think about male and female, each designates the absence of the characteristics included in the other. Two other important concepts are lang and parole. He used these terms to signify respectively language as a system or structure and any given utterance in that language. Claude Lévi-Strauss. He introduces the notion of binary oppositions. He argues that the human mind inherently organizes the world into pairs of contrasting concepts, such as male-female, life-dead, death, dead-night. These oppositions are not just arbitrary classifications, but fundamental categories through which humans make sense of their experience. Claude Lévi-Strauss applied structuralist theory to the interpretation of myths. His work is based on the idea that individual myths do not have inherent or fixed meanings, but are best understood within the context of an entire cycle of stories, such as those associated with a particular culture or place. He viewed these myths as interconnected systems of motives and oppositions. He also proposed that myths are structured around current oppositions or dyads, such as animal-human, father-son, or town-country. These oppositions are fundamental because they embody fundamental human concerns and archetypes, and they are expressed through motives and contrasts within myths. His work demonstrates that mythical narratives serve to express universal human contradictions through structured oppositions which are shared across cultures globally. Roland Barthes. He focused on applying the structuralist method to the general field of modern culture. His work demonstrates how seemingly natural meanings are in fact culturally constructed. Each analyzed cultural item is placed within a wider structure of values, beliefs, and symbols as the key to understanding it. And in the process of doing this, the layers of significance are revealed. A structuralist approach to literature shifts the focus from individual authorial intentions or moral meanings to understanding how the text functions as part of a larger signifying system. It seeks to uncover the deep structures that shape narrative and symbolic meaning in literary works. After having said this, now I'm going to discuss the main points of a relevant branch of structuralism. Narratology. Narratology is a study of narrative structures. As I mentioned before, it is a branch of structuralism. It is a study of how narratives make meaning and what the basic mechanisms and procedures are, which are common to all acts of storytelling. It is not the reading and interpretation of individual stories, but the attempt to study the nature of story itself as a concept and as cultural practice. We can study narratology through the ideas of three theoreticians. Aristotle, he identifies three key elements in a plot: hamartia, It means sin or fault. It refers to a mistake in judgment made by a tragic hero that ultimately leads to his downfall. It is known as tragic flaw. Anagnorisis. It means recognition or realization. It is a moment in the narrative when the truth of the situation is recognized by the hero. It is often a moment of self-recognition. Peripeteia. It means turn around or a reversal of fortune. It is usually a fall from high to low state, as the hero falls from greatness. Vladimir Prop. He studied the corpus of 100 tales and concluded that all these tales are constructed by selecting items from a basic repertoire of 31 functions. He noted that the 31 functions seem to group into 7 spheres of action, which include the villain, the donor, the helper, the princess, the dispatcher, the hero, and the false hero. Gerard Genette. His work focuses on the process and how the tale is told. He discusses 6 particular areas: narrative mode, focalization, narrator, time, how the story is packaged, and speech and thought. Applying narratology to analyzing works of literature involves understanding the underlying structures and techniques that shape narratives, enriching interpretation and criticism. This application can be approached in several ways, like analyzing story and plot, narrative structures, examining point of view and focalization, and identifying narrative modes and techniques. Now it's the turn of postcolonialism. Postcolonial theories critique Western literary and philosophical traditions for their repressive ethnocentrism. These theories argue that Western models of thought and literature have historically dominated and marginalized non-Western cultures. Deconstruction plays a major role in this critique by providing methods to challenge and dismantle these Western traditions. We can identify 3 main exponents: Edward Said, Gayatri Spivak, and Homi Bhabha. Edward Said holds that Orientalism is an ideological framework, a specific way of thinking, and a powerful discourse through which the West constructed the East. This discourse is not objective, but is deeply intertwined with Western power structures and serves to justify colonial domination. Influenced by Michel Foucault, Said points out that knowledge is never innocent or neutral. It is always connected to power. Orientalism works by creating another, a fundamentally different and inferior Eastern identity, against which the West could define its own superior self. This othering process involves stereotyping, generalizations, and the exaggeration of differences, denying the complexity and diversity of Eastern cultures. Gayatri Spivak. She takes the term subaltern from Antonio Gramsci, who used it to refer to subordinate classes, and expands it to enclose marginalized groups who are denied access to or representation within dominant discourses. She concludes that in the context of colonial and post-colonial power structures, the subaltern cannot speak because their voice is systematically silenced, distorted, or misinterpreted. Combining deconstruction, feminism, and Marxism, Spivak emphasizes the ethical responsibility of critics to challenge dominant systems thoughtfully and continually question assumptions in the act of representation. Homi Bhabha. He introduces 2 main concepts: mimicry and hybridity. Mimicry describes the process by which the colonized subject imitates the colonizer's culture, language, and values. Bava argues that this mimicry is never a perfect reproduction. It is almost the same, but not quite. But by mimicking the colonizer, the colonized simultaneously affirms and undermines colonial authority. Mimicry can be seen as a mocking repetition that unsettles colonial power. Hybridity refers to the emergence of new cultural forms, identities, and meanings that arise from the encounter between colonizer and colonized. It is not simply a mixing of two distant cultures, but the creation of something genuinely new and often unsettling, challenging the notion of fixed cultural identities for both the colonizer and the colonized. For Baba, hybridity is a productive and potentially subversive force. Postcolonialism challenges readers to consider the political and cultural implications of narrative, characterization, and language choices in literary works. Applying postcolonial theories entails analyzing texts through the lens of colonial power, identity, representation, and resistance. It helps uncover how literature reflects, challenges, or perpetuates imperial ideologies, and how it gives voice, or fails to give voice, to colonized subjects. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. See you next time.